would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California. Member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to Friday, everyone. It is actually Friday for me. It's odd for me to record a show on the same day that it's going to go out. I apologize for the lack of a show at the usual time today. I was actually in the middle of recording it when there was a power outage here in my well-appointed Rebel studio, aka my office where my computer is. Power went out. I sat here for a few minutes waiting for it to come back on. Didn't come back on. Of course, had to take care of some other things this morning and got back to it and discovered that everything would boot up, but the power outage had completely chewed up the show that I had mostly finished and had also left the app I use not liking things. The setup was kind of screwed up. So this show is as much a test to make sure everything's now working again as anything else. Hopefully, if you're someone who usually listens to the show on your commute to work, today we can dabble a little Friday after work Rebel mojo over your home commute. So there's that. We're going to talk about kind of off the cuff stuff today. I'm very much investment minded these days in terms of what I'm doing in my personal life. I'm hoping to go check out the investment lay of the land up in Sacramento with our ever faithful audience member, Scott Blasius, up there doing the real estate thing in the greater Sacramento area. Over the years, if you've been a listener, you know that Scott and I have interacted. He's shared articles with me. I've shared articles with him. We have chats back and forth about where we think the market's going. We occasionally disagree on some finer points, but Scott's a good guy and well worth your time if you are looking for someone to help you out with your investment strategies in the greater Sacramento area. So, of course, I put my money where my mouth is. So if I would suggest you talk to him if you're looking to invest up there, that's who I'm going to go to. So hopefully we're going to work something out in terms of what day we can connect and start to discuss the markets there. And of course, it'll be a learning experience for you as well. It'll be one of those things where as I go through the process, I'll of course share that with you all so that you can kind of get a feeling for what's involved. One thing that has been asked by a listener, and I can't help thinking, given how long we've been doing this, that this has got to be something that has bothered other listeners in the moment, and maybe even in the back of their head. They said to themselves, you know what, I need to reach out to Robert. I need to send the Rebel Broker an email or text or something and ask him what the hell he's talking about. Now, before we get into this logical question of what the hell I'm talking about, you can head on over to the website at therebelbroker.com. From there, you can check out the show notes for any of the shows. And the show notes are good. I think the show notes are helpful because they give links to all the articles that sort of underpin the things we talk about during the show. It also gives you an opportunity to click on the big red button at the top of the page, take the survey to support the show. It does two great things. One, it enters you into a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. I just confirmed yesterday that the email for the last recipient for this month's recipient is actually working, and they're getting that email, so they should happily have a $50 gift card in their hot little hands right now. Congratulations to Eduardo for winning that $50 gift card. But in addition to that, it's also a great place for you to support the show. You can check out at the end of show notes, there's a place for you to click and support a sponsor. Currently, Audible. Audible seems to be in a relationship with just about everybody. If you'd like to support the show, though, and you want to get some audiobooks and you like what Audible has to offer, please do it through my site at therebelbroker.com. And of course, there's also the Amazon store that I have set up that is going to give you an opportunity to, if you're buying books relating to real estate and you want to get the best price via Amazon, but you also want to support the show without it costing you anymore, do it through that, and you will absolutely be supporting the show and getting what you need. I'm also on I'm on more of a read more books kick. I've read a ton of real estate books, and because I've been in this business so long, some of the books I've read are a little bit on the old side, a little long in the tooth. Most of them still absolutely apply. They're talking about strategies and techniques, particularly the McElroy book that I strongly recommend. If you want to check out that one, head on over to the website and check out the Amazon bookstore. It's the number. I made sure it is the first book to show up in that list of suggested real estate books. So make sure and check that out because it's hands down what I think one of the best walkthroughs of how to start investing, whether you're investing in your own area or other areas. So take advantage of that. The other thing is, if you'd like to become a member of the Rebel Underground, simply text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. That's text the word Rebel Broker, all one word, to the number 44222. Because I'm an idiot, that's really been the only way to join the Rebel Underground. So I'm going to add a link at the website so you no longer have to text to join the Rebel Underground. You can also just click a button on the website. So there you go. Anyway, so let's jump back into what the discussion was. It was an email I got asking whenever I am going through, as for those of you who've been listening for a while, or for those of you who don't, one of the things I like to do here is run down lists of projected to be great or great right now communities for investors. Lots of different pundits, lots of different sources out there put out information on these are the great communities for 2017, or these are the places that are performing the best right now, or here are the places showing the greatest return on investment for investors, or here are places where this segment of the buying community is migrating to the most. So those various types of things. And usually we'll cherry pick a few communities and we'll look at them more closely. And usually that at the very least equals, sometimes we'll get into very specific properties, but to get a general feel, we'll talk about median sales price or average sales price, whichever number they offer. It's usually median. I'm more of a fan of the average, but there you go. Versus average rent or median rent. And I will say kind of out of hand, I like that ratio, without really giving any more information. It's just one of those things I kind of spit out and just assume everyone knows what I'm talking about. Well, I've now had someone reach out and go, what the hell are you talking about? All right, so here's a general rule I use when I'm evaluating the cost to acquire versus the rent that you can get, right? And it's really super simple. It's absolutely a broad strokes way to look at things. So it's not always something you want to use to completely disregard this property, but it's absolutely something you can use as an initial quick way of sort of maybe prioritizing properties in terms of what you're looking at. And it's, for me, I call it the 1% rule. And what I'm basically looking for is a scenario where the rent that I could get on a property is about 1% of what the purchase price is. So if I'm buying, and it's a very broad strokes thing. It's designed to take into account other expenses that might be involved with the property relating to whatever, property taxes, that type of stuff, the mortgage. So in other words, it's a way to ballpark it, right? And I did not make this up. This is something that's been floating around for a long time. I can remember my grandfather, who is in real estate, talking about this particular number. And it's just 1% of the purchase price. So if it's $100,000 purchase price for the property, then you are looking for rents to be at least $1,000 a month. Now, just to be absolutely clear, I'm pretty sure that when you're using this number, the broad definition is to cover the mortgage payment, right? So if you live in an area where you should really be taking into account expenses that are not, well, I mean, normal is relative, right? For instance, here in California, we've got property taxes we need to deal with. And what I'm saying is that 1% rule may be a good guideline, but you may need to nudge it one way or another to verify it. And one quick way to do that is to simply go with the 1% rule and then do the more detailed investment analysis that we've talked about here on this show before, just to see how close that got you, right? And then from there on, you can kind of create your own rules and move forward as you like. But that's sort of it. That's the general gist. So you go and you look at a property, and then 1% makes it easy. You can just simply go to that $100,000 mark and put the decimal point there or the comma there for the thousands, and that should be what you are getting in terms of monthly rent. I find this to be a great tool, particularly when I'm looking at multifamily units, anything from a duplex up to quads and beyond. And I think it absolutely is something that you can consider when you are looking at different properties. Now, it's also something that's not going to make a whole lot of sense if you're looking at the lowest possible amount down. So let me give you an example. We've talked about this before in terms of the Bay Area not being a great place for investors. It can be even with rents where they are now. So for instance, you can buy a home for, let's see, you can get my current home, which would sell for almost $1 million in its current state, would rent for about $4,000. Well, that is not going to meet with my 1% rule. I am clearly not going to be able to rent this place for $10,000 a month. So it becomes a balancing act. Can this property be positive cash flow? Absolutely, but it typically means you need to have more money down. You need to make sure that your mortgage payment is lower. So it's usually more skin in the game. But as a general rule, this 1% prospect is a good one to work with. But again, you need to calibrate yourself to reality. There's absolutely money to be made if you structure the deal differently, even if some properties don't meet that 1% rule. So when I say I like the ratio, when we're sort of going over the details of a particular, either a specific property, or if we're going over the more broad strokes of the median price versus the median rent, that's kind of what I'm referring to. I'm referring to that this ratio indicates to me that I'm going to probably be able to find some pretty good deals in that area that makes sense to me. Okay. So right now we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with more real estate info. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We spent a little time at the beginning of the show talking about a casual reference that I make frequently whenever evaluating markets. I hope that has cleared things up, understanding what I mean when I say I like that ratio, without actually discussing what the heck that means. And again, I always hate when I say things like that, because it implies this absolute that if it doesn't meet that requirement, you should not look at it, and that's absolutely not the case. There's a lot of different factors, but it can absolutely help you to prioritize perhaps specific properties on what you're looking at. So just use that as the tool it's intended to be, and don't let it dominate your selection process. It's strictly meant to be sort of a rule of thumb kind of thing. The other thing I wanted to cover today was a couple of different markets here that are showing some interesting changes. They've appeared on many of our lists over the course of the last year. And the first one I wanted to hit on is North Texas. In November, wow, home sales just shot up 26% in North Texas from the same time last year. It's the biggest year-over-year home sales gain for the area in almost 4 years. Quote, I don't know if it was the election or the interest rates rising, but people have been buying a lot of houses, more than we expected for sure. North Texas real estate agents sold almost 7,900 pre-owned single-family homes in November, according to data from the Real Estate Center and North Texas Real Estate Information Systems. So we're not even talking about new construction here. We're absolutely talking about the core of the market that we need so much more of in the rest of the country in terms of more pre-owned properties coming onto the market. It goes on to say that most of the houses sold in November would have been put under contract before election day, but there were already signs that mortgage costs would be moving higher. Quote, we suspect what is happening is a lot of people got nervous about interest rates going up and went ahead and locked in their rate and brought sales forward and got it done. The general expectation is rates are going to go up during the course of the year ahead. Now, this comes up, and whenever you get news like that, and whether it's true or not, right? We've talked about it here. I've lightly touched on my estimation of what's going to happen with interest rates in terms of them not really rocketing up or going crazy or anything close to that. But I will tell you this. The perception that that is going to happen can absolutely be something that you leverage off of, whether you're talking about as an investor, for instance. Let's say you go out and you're making offers and you're trying to lowball these offers. If you're able to make your presentation in person, which is almost never going to happen, but if you include a cover letter, I think one important thing to mention is, because most of them are going to buy into this, and maybe they're right, it could absolutely end up being true. They will limit the number of folks who are able to buy their property once interest rates go up. So every day that goes by where interest rates potentially go up, these sellers are in a position where they will more than likely have to take less as buyers adjust their buying habit relating to how much they're going to pay for the loan, right? If the cost of the loan goes up, the amount you're going to spend on the house has to go down. You can use this dynamic, and it's been a long time since that I've been able to use interest rates as a way to sort of push the deal in one direction or another. But absolutely use this as something to leverage off of in terms of getting your offer in. And this will work not just for buyers. This will work for not just for investors, but for buyers as well. And you don't even need to come out and say, you better sell it to me because interest rates are going to go up and the number of buyers that will be able to purchase the place is going to shrink. All you need to do is to plant that seed. You could simply say as a buyer in your cover letter, with all of the experts indicating, and that's what they're doing, right? And no matter how many times experts get proven wrong, nothing is better than quoting the experts when it's going to work in your favor, are saying interest rates will be going up. And that means that the number of folks who can afford your property at this price point is going to do nothing but go down over the next 6 months. And don't phrase it quite that way. Phrase it as buyers who are conscious of the fact that fewer and fewer buyers are going to be able to purchase at this price point because of increasing interest rates. We really wanted to move now and feel that we're making a very, fair and equitable offer based on what we see the current marketplace to be and where the market's likely to be going in the next few months. So as long as you know that the seller is going to see that little seed being planted can work wonders for you. It'll work most with sellers who have been in the market the longest because they're already trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Why haven't they sold yet? It may be because their price is too high and you're finally coming in with a more realistic price. But if you can add something else to that data list to explain to them why they need to be willing to accept a lower price, that's just going to work in your favor. Is that what's happening here in Texas? I don't know, but whatever happened, I'm guessing that interest rates alone wouldn't account for such a dramatic increase. Price tags on a home in North Texas are still soaring. Median price of a pre-owned house in the area jumped 15% in November compared with a year earlier. A mid-priced house sold by real estate agents traded for $230,000 last month, near the all-time high. What's really amazing about that is we're talking about these numbers, we're talking about a market in growth, but we're also talking about, and I realize that when I also get some people who want to smack me when I talk about low barriers to entry, and a $200,000 or $230,000 price tag is a low barrier to entry. Well, since the last time I ever was able to buy or sell a property for under $250,000 was in 1992 here in the Bay Area. That's kind of where I'm at. But we're talking an area that's showing this kind of growth and this kind of improvement where the mid-priced home is $230,000. So it's not these crazy marketplaces, but you're getting this level of growth that people are always saying is so amazing about areas like Silicon Valley. So, man, why have to come up with $1 million or $2 million in Silicon Valley when you can come up with $230,000 in a market like Dallas-Fort Worth and get some amazing performance numbers? Prices are rising rapidly because the supply of homes up for sale in North Texas remains at rock bottom. Now, that's the question you need to get answered. What is it that fueled this 26% increase? Since they're pre-owned home, it's got to be more homes on the market, right? They've only got a 2.1 month inventory in November. About 18,000 houses were listed with real estate agents in the almost 24 North Texas counties at the end of the month. And they're also expecting December to be another strong home sales month, because there's more than 7,500 purchases currently pending. The one piece of data they don't include here relates to what I just commented on. What about inventory compared to a year ago? Now, one article from Movoto, which I'll include in the show notes, does mention in passing an increase in inventory. And I think that kind of explains it. Whenever they really don't want to give me data like this, everyone wants to, ascribe hotness to something that really is a mover and a shaker in the marketplace as opposed to something basic. And it seems to me that it's probably more of a supply thing, but don't take that as a negative. I actually don't think it's a negative. It's simply that the supply is now meeting what has already been a pent-up demand. And that's good news for this particular market, because it will also soften the level of increase in the prices of homes, right? If you get more and more inventory coming on. Now, I've looked at inventory numbers for this area going back a very long time. The only one I could find went up to September. And even over the last, say, 6 months, it showed relatively flat inventory numbers, but with a little bit of a boost recently. But if you look at the inventory numbers going back years and years, we are at historically low inventory numbers in terms of properties available in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So what does that mean to you as an investor? We know if we look historically going back decades, we can see some huge numbers in terms of amount of inventory. And that should scare you, because whenever you're at an extreme, whether it's a supply extreme or a demand extreme, those don't last, right? So that means you need to be extra smart in what you're doing in terms of the moves you're making. Now, a lot of the improvements in Dallas-Fort Worth, you can actually examine the underpinnings, and I think they're solid. I think the underpinnings that are making the Dallas-Fort Worth marketplace relatively, making it strong, are solid. I don't think anyone's going to cry in 5 years if they go and invest in a property in Dallas-Fort Worth now. There may be some more near-term weird fluctuations, but I think in general you're going to be in a good place. It seems like an economy that's rounded enough that it's going to support whatever you're going to do for the long term. And again, it's all about just buying smart on the front end. The other community I wanted to touch on today is Phoenix. Now, Phoenix is one of those places, along with, for whatever reason, Las Vegas, is another one of those communities I like to look at just as sort of a bellwether. I think it's interesting to see what happens there. Phoenix saw, and I think primarily because a lot of these communities were dramatically hit by the downturn. Now, Dallas-Fort Worth, not so much, but places like Phoenix, Las Vegas, those types of places were really smacked around. So it's interesting to look at those places to see where they're at. But then, and both of these areas were also followed up with relatively strong investor buying. Inventory was down 2% year over year in October. This followed 8 consecutive months with a year over year increase in inventory. The Arizona Regional Multiple Listing Service reports overall sales in November. This is a big number because it even beats Dallas-Fort Worth. Overall sales in November were up 30.2% year over year. Cash sales, which typically indicates greater investor involvement, were down to 23.4% of total sales. Active inventory is down 1.8% year over year. So that's kind of interesting. That kind of a dynamic usually points to an increase in prices, simply because when you're getting sales going up that much and inventory down that much, you're usually getting people paying a lot more. Let's see. Price increases did slow in 2014, only increasing by 2.4, according to Case-Shiller. In 2015, with falling inventory prices increased a little faster. Prices were up 6.3% in 2015, according to Case-Shiller. The slight decrease in inventory followed 8 monthly year-over-year increases, which might indicate a change in trend that might be worth looking at. Let's see. If we look at November 16th, year-over-year change in inventory down 1.8%. The change from 2014 to 2015 was 8.8% lower. So a pretty dramatic year last year in terms of a downturn. Total number of sales in November of 2016, 6,911. The year-over-year change was 30.2, as we mentioned. And cash sales last year made up 29.1%. So that's a 6% change in the total involvement of investors, which usually can also indicate to you a couple of things. There's actually a sweet spot with investors moving into or out of different marketplaces. As investors first start to move out, that usually means that buyers can at least get a little bit more hope of getting good properties. There's a little bit less competition, and prices have not gone up enough that investors have decided to back out entirely. So it's usually a little window of opportunity that might make it easier for a run-of-the-mill buyer or a beginning investor to get in there and get a decent deal that they can take advantage of in terms of being a positive cash flow experience for the next few years, depending on what your plan is. So make sure to take advantage of that. With this drop in the number of folks who are investors, you may be starting to see this point where you, as a first-time buyer, just a buyer in general, or as an entry-level investor, you might find yourself being less outbid, or outbid in terms of terms, right? If people are coming in with all cash, they're frequently going to beat people who are going to come in with financing, even if they're coming in with a lower dollar amount in terms of offer. So I wanted to point those two communities out. I think they're kind of interesting to see how they're changing. As we move forward, of course, we'll keep our eye on those markets and see if there's any nuggets of wisdom that we can pull out of those for us to take advantage of in our own day-to-day real estate stuff. I really do appreciate that you are willing to spend your valuable time talking with me about real estate, and I hope that in return, I leave you with some interesting things to think about at the very least. As always, thanks for listening, everybody. I'll talk to y'all next time.